Hey man, there's something you need to understand deep in your bones. Attention is the most powerful currency you possess. It's not your looks, it's not your money, it's not your words, it's where you place your focus. That energy, it's sacred. And when you give it to a woman who hasn't earned it, who hasn't shown loyalty, who treats your presence like it's disposable, you're feeding the very beast that's chewing you up inside. The truth is, most men don't even realize they're doing it. They think that by being available, being present, checking in, texting first, validating her constantly, they're building attraction. But in reality, they're starving her of the one thing that would make her feel their value: distance, detachment, the silence that screams, "I'm not yours unless you show me why I should be." Let me tell you something brutal. A woman will not appreciate you while you're still orbiting her. As long as she knows she can reach you, get a reply, hear your voice, receive your attention at her convenience, she will never fear losing you. And without that fear, there is no urgency. Without urgency, there is no investment. This is what most men completely miss. They stay in the pocket too long. They keep texting, keep checking her story, keep liking her posts, keep replying to messages she sends after days of silence. And all the while, they're wondering, why is she pulling away? Why doesn't she respect me? The answer is simple. You gave her what should have been earned, your undivided focus. You handed over the throne to someone who barely knocked on the door. The game changes the second you understand this. Women don't crave constant attention. They crave the attention that's not easy to get. That's what hooks them. That's what drives them wild. That's what triggers the deepest emotional response. Because when a man steps back, not out of pettiness, not out of manipulation, but out of self-respect, something clicks in her mind. She starts wondering, starts analyzing, starts missing what she took for granted, and the silence, it starts talking louder than anything you ever said. That's when she begins to spiral. Not because you played a game, but because you stopped playing hers. You have to realize, most women are surrounded by orbiters. Guys who will text them good morning without fail. Guys who compliment them even when they're being disrespectful. Guys who wait around hoping to be noticed. You know what happens when you step out of that crowd? You stand out. When you remove your attention, not with bitterness, but with confidence, you create a vacuum. And that vacuum does something dangerous. It forces her to face a question she hasn't asked herself in a long time. Did I lose him? That question, that uncertainty. That's where the real attraction starts. Because no woman wants a man she's certain of. She wants a man whose value she has to earn. The moment you pull your energy back, everything gets exposed. If she was using you for validation, she'll disappear. If she actually valued you, she'll reach. That's the beauty of silence. It's not passive, it's active, it's strategic, it's a mirror. It shows her exactly who she is and exactly what she feels without you needing to say a single word. But here's the catch, you have to mean it. You can't pull back and secretly hope she notices. You can't stop texting her and then stalk her profile. You have to remove your attention and detach your outcome. That's where the true power is. When you no longer need a reaction, you've already won. It's kind of ironic, isn't it? You gave her all your time, all your effort, your emotional presence, your care, and she barely noticed. She scrolled past your messages. She left you on read. She replied when it was convenient. And then the moment you disappear, the moment you stop caring, now she's curious. Now she's anxious. Now she's sending little feelers. Hey, been a while. Missed your texts. How have you been? Don't fall for it. Don't break your silence just because she realized you were the only one who actually paid attention to her soul. Because the truth is, if she really valued it, she wouldn't have waited until it was gone to recognize it. A woman doesn't truly start chasing until she feels that something rare might slip through her fingers. And a man's rarest gift is focused absence, not ghosting, not bitterness, just stillness, just stepping back and living your life. Letting her experience what her world feels like without your presence in it. Letting her compare your absence to the attention of every other guy who's still throwing themselves at her. And trust me, she feels it. Not because you posted something, not because you left a cryptic quote, but because you didn't, because you're not seeking her anymore. And that silence becomes deafening. It becomes a mirror to her inconsistency. Detachment is not pretending not to care. It's actually not caring until she shows up correctly. It's letting her go in your heart before she even realizes you've walked away. Because when a woman feels that shift, when she feels your emotional cord being severed, it rattles her. Not because you yelled, not because you lashed out, but because you went quiet, you stopped reacting, you stopped dancing to her rhythm, and now for the first time in the dynamic, she's the one wondering. That shift in energy, it's everything. It's where your power lives. Not in control, but in refusal to be controlled. Here's what you need to understand about the modern woman. She's been trained to believe that she can always come back, that no matter how she acts, no matter how many times she disappears, you'll still be there. That's why removing your attention is the most disruptive, most psychologically jarring thing you can do, because it challenges her programming. It tells her, you are not entitled to my energy. And when you say that, without saying a word, just by living, just by growing, just by withdrawing, you reclaim your place as the chooser, not the beggar. And that's where everything flips. That's when she starts to question herself. That's when the dynamic shifts from indifference to obsession. You don't get respect by constantly explaining your worth. You get respect by silently showing her what it's like without you, and not in a performative way, not to hurt her, but because you finally recognize what you were offering and how little it was appreciated. So you stop offering it, you stop pouring energy into a black hole, and instead you give that attention back to yourself, to your goals, to your peace. And the irony, that's when she starts chasing. That's when she starts trying, because now you're not available. Now your energy has become a privilege, not a guarantee. And to a woman who's used to being chased, that's intoxicating. When a woman realizes you're no longer emotionally available, that's when panic sets in. Not because she loves you, at least not yet, but because she no longer feels the power she once had over you. You see, women aren't just addicted to validation. They're addicted to the control that validation gives them. When you were always there, always reacting, always responding to her every move, she had leverage. She knew she could shift your mood, your thoughts, your direction, just by giving or withdrawing attention. But the moment you stop reacting, the moment your emotions don't flinch at her silence, she feels powerless. And for a woman who thrives on emotional control, that's devastating. Let me be clear. Removing your attention is not a punishment, it's a boundary. It's you saying, if you don't value my presence, you won't have access to it. Most men fear doing this because they're afraid of losing her. But here's the truth. If removing your attention causes her to leave permanently, she was never yours to begin with. A woman who values you will feel your absence and adjust. She'll reach, she'll reflect, she'll recalibrate. But if she ghosts you, mocks your silence, or acts like you never existed, good. You just saved yourself months, maybe years of emotional drain. Don't mourn the loss of someone who never respected your energy in the first place. You have to understand how rare you become when you stop chasing. In a world of men who are throwing themselves at women with memes, thirst traps, weird texts, and constant check-ins, you become a force of nature when you disappear. When you no longer validate her every story. When you no longer engage in every argument, when you no longer try to win her back, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability breeds curiosity. And curiosity, that's the foundation of obsession. The more she can't figure you out, the more she wonders what you're thinking, what you're doing, and most importantly, who you're doing it with. You know what's wild? Most women have never had a man detach with calmness. They've had tantrums. They've had drama. They've had silence that's really just bait for attention. But a man who walks away, not with bitterness, but with peace, that's a different animal. That's a man who knows his worth. That's a man who has options. That's a man who's not seeking closure because he is the closure. And when a woman experiences that, it shakes her. Because now she's not dealing with a boy who's emotionally dependent. She's facing a man who can leave with his dignity intact and never come back. You want to know why removing your attention is so powerful? Because it forces her to face her reflection. As long as you're giving her attention, she can blame you for everything. You're too needy, you're too available, you're too emotional. But the second you go silent, the excuses vanish. Now she has to ask herself, why did he stop reaching out? Why doesn't he care anymore? Did I mess up? That self-doubt is the beginning of change. That crack in her confidence is where the desire to earn you begins, but it only happens after you stop showing up. You can't coach her into it. You can't explain it into existence. You have to let her feel the consequences of losing you. Don't just stop texting her. Stop thinking about her. Detachment isn't just external, it's internal. You can delete her number, unfollow her account, block her everywhere, but if she still lives rent-free in your mind, you're not free. Freedom is when her actions don't control your peace, when her silence doesn't ruin your day, when her hot and cold behavior no longer pulls your emotions like a puppet on strings. You get there by recentering, by pouring your attention back into yourself, by making your goals, your health, your mission, the new obsession. Because the truth is, once you reclaim that mental real estate, she loses the ability to rent space in your soul. Every time you check her profile, you're leaking power. Every time you reread old messages, you're clinging to a version of her that doesn't exist anymore. And every time you respond to her breadcrumbs, those weak little hey texts, those Instagram likes, those vague snaps, you're reinforcing her belief that she can have you whenever she wants. But the man who stops responding, he forces her to level up. Because now, attention isn't cheap. Now she has to earn a response. She has to be intentional. She has to try. And that shift, that moment where she starts working for what she used to receive for free, that's the beginning of respect. When you remove your attention, you reset the entire dynamic. You go from being the chaser to the chooser, from reactive to proactive, from predictable to mysterious. And the most fascinating part, she starts to romanticize you. She starts to remember only the good parts, the way you made her feel, the way you looked at her, the consistency she used to overlook. But that only happens when you vanish, when your energy is no longer at her fingertips. Familiarity breeds contempt, but absence breeds reverence. She starts to wonder what it would be like to have you back, but this time on your terms. A woman can't miss you if you never leave. She can't respect you if you're always available. She can't value you if she never fears losing you. That's why attention is everything. It's the measuring stick of your self-worth. It tells her what you tolerate, what you'll accept, what kind of man you are. And when she realizes that your attention is no longer guaranteed, that it's not a faucet she can turn on and off, she panics. Not because she's scared of losing you necessarily, but because she's scared of losing the option of you. And when a woman loses her options, that's when her behavior gets real. The ultimate power move isn't ghosting her, it's healing from her. It's building a life so full, so rich, so purpose-driven, that her absence no longer even registers. It's not about showing her you're okay, it's about actually being okay. Because when your energy is focused inward, when your life becomes the main character in your story, women start sensing it. It's in your eyes, in your posture, in the way you walk into a room like you own it. Not because you're trying to impress her, but because you finally remembered who the hell you are. And when you reclaim that identity, that's when she realizes she can't access you anymore. Not because you blocked her, but because you outgrew her. You've got to understand, attention is currency in the world of female psychology. It's the invisible reward system that reinforces her behavior. The more attention you give her after she disrespects you, the more she learns that disrespect has no consequence. The more attention you give her when she pulls away, the more she learns that distance earns devotion. But when you remove that attention, not in anger, but in silence, you flip the script. You teach her that your energy is sacred, that your presence is earned, that your validation is not a vending machine that takes her breadcrumbs as payment. That's when her mind starts spiraling. That's when she starts to reevaluate everything she thought she knew about you. And in that silence, you become louder than you've ever been. There's nothing more threatening to a woman's ego than a man who detaches without explanation. See, women are used to men needing closure, needing answers, needing reassurance. They're used to the "we need to talk" texts, the desperate voice notes, the paragraphs filled with emotion. But when you vanish quietly, when you walk without warning and don't look back, it creates a vacuum, a gap in her reality. And women hate gaps. They fill them with stories, theories, anxieties. She'll start wondering who you're with, what you're doing, why you don't care anymore. And that curiosity, that's what makes her obsess. Because in her mind, men chase. But now she's chasing your silence, and it's deafening. Never confuse silence with passivity. Your silence is not weakness, it's strategy. Because while she's out there convincing herself she's still in control, your absence is planting seeds. Seeds of doubt, seeds of regret, seeds of accountability. And while you're focused on your grind, your growth, your mission. She's stuck replaying the last time you spoke, the last look you gave her, the last time you ignored her post. That's the power of emotional detachment. It doesn't beg for attention, it commands it. It doesn't shout, it echoes. And that echo is what stays with her long after you're gone. You'll know you've mastered detachment when your peace is no longer dependent on her response. When you don't check your phone every 5 minutes, when you don't care if she's online, when her silence doesn't make your hands itch to type, that's the moment you've shifted from reactive to sovereign. And that kind of man, he becomes a ghost in her mind, always present, but never reachable, always desired, but never desperate. He becomes the one she measures other men against, the one she can't replace. Because his energy wasn't needy, it was royal, and royalty doesn't beg to be seen. Here's a secret most women will never admit: the men they can't get are the ones they think about the most, not the guys who text good morning every day. Not the ones who write love poems and cry at the sight of her stories. No, it's the man who withdrew with grace, the man who smiled while walking away, the man who didn't argue, he just stopped showing up. That man haunts her, not because he played games, but because he didn't. Because he knew his worth, because he gave her everything and then left when she stopped deserving it. That's the man she remembers at 2 a.m. That's the man she can't stop watching in silence. Removing your attention is not about making her suffer. It's about reminding her that you're not her emotional crutch. You're not a fallback option. You're not the guy she calls only when she's bored, lonely, or craving ego fuel. You're a man with standards, a man with vision, a man who won't stay somewhere he's not appreciated. And when she realizes that, when she feels that vacuum in her daily routine, the messages she used to get, the reactions she used to expect, the eyes that used to watch, suddenly she'll be the one craving attention. But by then, it might be too late, because your life is moving forward and she's still standing where you left her. The first trap isn't always visual, it's emotional, and women are masters at setting them. A subtle like, a vague story, a random "how have you been" text. These aren't signs of love, they're tests. Tests to see if you still care. Test to see if she still has access to your emotions. Don't fall for it, because the moment you respond, you're back in her orbit, back in her game, back in the cycle of giving attention for nothing in return. But the man who doesn't bite, the man who doesn't take the bait, he becomes the one she respects, the one she can't manipulate, the one she secretly wants more than any simp who chases shadows. You want to build a life where your attention is a privilege, not a right. Where your energy isn't freely handed out to anyone with a pretty face and a good angle. Where your time is protected like gold. And when you live that way, when you walk, talk, and breathe like a man who values himself, everything shifts. Women start approaching differently. They speak with more intent. They engage with more respect. Because they know one wrong move, one disrespectful moment, one red flag, and they're gone from your world. Not because you're bitter, but because you're busy, you're focused, and you've outgrown the game. Let's not sugarcoat it. Removing your attention might cause temporary loneliness. You might miss her, you might want to reach out, but that discomfort, that's part of the detox. That's part of the detox. That's the withdrawal from the addiction of validation. You've spent weeks, maybe months, feeding her ego, making her the center of your thoughts. Of course it's hard to pull back, but pain is the price of transformation, and on the other side of that silence is clarity, strength, peace. You'll begin to see her not as the woman you imagined, but as the woman she truly is, and from that place, you'll never give your attention so carelessly again. Your silence is not a weapon, it's a mirror. It shows her who she really is. It shows you who you really are. And in that reflection, the truth becomes undeniable. You don't need her validation. You don't need her to miss you. You don't need her to come back, because you've already come back to yourself. You've remembered your value, reclaimed your power, and rebuilt your standards. And once that foundation is solid, no amount of beauty, charm, or nostalgia can shake it. You've removed her of your attention, and in doing so, you've reminded her and the world that the most dangerous man alive is the one who no longer needs to be seen. Most men don't realize how badly they dilute their value by simply being too available. You see, women aren't wired to cherish what they don't have to earn. If she knows you're always one text away, one call away, one "I miss you" away from rushing back, you've already lost. She might enjoy the ego boost, She might enjoy the control, but attraction, real desire, that dies the second she sees that you're more emotionally dependent on her than she is on herself. But the man who takes a step back, the man who removes his energy the second it's not being valued, he triggers something deeper in her, a primal awareness that this man won't stay where he's not respected, and that's the one man she can't forget. It's funny how things flip when you go quiet. The woman who ignored your messages suddenly posts cryptic quotes. She starts watching your stories again. Maybe she even accidentally likes your old photos. That's not coincidence, that's tension. That's her feeling the void where your attention used to be. And she hates that emptiness, because even if she doesn't want you romantically, she liked having you orbiting her. It made her feel validated, important, powerful. But now, you've pulled gravity away from her world. She's drifting, uncertain, suddenly aware that maybe, just maybe, you were the one with the power all along. Women are intuitive. She can feel when your attention is on her, even when you say nothing. She senses your emotional presence. She knows when she's still living in your mind. But when you remove that, when she no longer feels your mental or emotional presence, it creates a discomfort that logic can't soothe. And in that discomfort, she starts to look inward. She starts to reflect. She starts to feel the absence that she once dismissed. And that absence, that's where your value starts to multiply. Not because you begged for her to recognize it, but because you made her feel what life is like without it. The strongest men I know don't remove attention out of spite. They do it out of self-respect. They don't need to announce it. They don't need to prove anything. They just vanish, calmly, elegantly, with grace. And that kind of exit, it's more powerful than any speech, because it doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't seek validation. It just ends. And when a woman experiences that kind of ending, an ending that isn't emotional but sovereign, she never fully recovers. She may move on, she may find someone else, but that feeling of being dismissed by a man who knew his worth, that sticks. It echoes in her future relationships, and no matter how hard she tries, she'll never feel quite as in control again. You've got to stop thinking that your value is proven by how much you're willing to tolerate. That's not strength. That's surrender. Real masculine power is not about how long you can endure mistreatment, but how quickly you walk away from it. The man who detaches without drama, he's not weak, he's rare, because he knows his peace is priceless. He knows that no matter how beautiful she is, how tempting her attention might be, it's not worth losing himself over. And once he makes that decision, not with anger, but with resolve, he steps into a level of power that very few ever reach. He becomes untouchable, unshakable, desired because he doesn't chase. And here's the harsh reality most won't say out loud. She never really valued you while she had your attention. She only began to notice you the second it disappeared. That's not love, it's psychology, it's how the human mind works. We crave what we can't control, we obsess over what escapes us, and the moment you're no longer emotionally available, the moment you stop reacting, stop replying, stop giving her the attention she took for granted, that's when you become real to her, not as an option, but as a man she lost. A man she didn't understand until it was too late. Sometimes, silence is the only thing loud enough to make her listen. You could pour out your heart, you could send paragraphs, voice notes, explanations, none of that would reach her. But your absence, that's a language she can't ignore. That's a pressure she can't rationalize away. It lingers, it stings, and it forces her to confront a version of herself that she doesn't like, the version that lost a man who treated her well, who gave her everything, and who finally realized his own worth. That's a mirror few women are ready to face, but once they do, everything changes. You don't have to be cruel, you don't have to be rude, you just have to stop showing up. Stop showing up in her inbox. Stop showing up in her story views. Stop showing up in her emotional world. Detachment isn't aggression, it's alignment. It's you choosing to stop investing in a place that brings you no return. It's you reclaiming your time, your focus, your emotional bandwidth, and when she realizes you're gone, not mad, not bitter, just gone, she'll feel it deeper than anything you could have said, because absence has a gravity that words will never match. What happens next is not your responsibility. Maybe she reflects, maybe she changes, maybe she reaches out, maybe she doesn't. None of that matters. What matters is you, your growth, your clarity, your ability to finally choose yourself over someone who didn't know how to treat you. That's the win. That's the glow up. And by the time she realizes what she lost, you'll be so far ahead, so locked into your purpose, so surrounded by peace, that even if she tried to come back, she wouldn't recognize the version of you she once overlooked. So remember this, your attention is sacred. It is not free. It is not casual. It is not something to be handed out to anyone who bats their lashes or sends a risky text. It is the fuel of your masculine essence, and any woman who treats it as disposable loses it, instantly, without discussion, without second chances. Because once you remove your attention, not in spite, but in silent dignity, she will go crazy trying to get it back. But by then, you'll be too focused, too evolved, and too grounded to ever give it away so easily again. That's when you win, not by chasing her, but by never needing her validation again.